Welcome everybody to Very Important Geeks, where today we're going to be doing a show and tell on my very first and very hefty custom build of a Tofu65 with lubed and filmed Hippo linear switches. So that Tofu65 kit had everything that I was looking for, and it fit the budget quite nicely. So I'm going to link everything in the description below, and while you're there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you know when I upload some new nonsense. All said and done, this kit cost me just a little under $400 if you're talking about the kit, the switches, the keycaps, and all the tools that I didn't have before I started. And I'll go ahead and throw up the itemized pricing list so you can see what everything cost. And because it was my first build, I definitely learned some things and made a few mistakes along the way. I'm going to go ahead and break it down in order of everything I did for my process. First step, inventory and fit. Go ahead and check your parts and make sure everything works and fits the way it is supposed to. Make sure that nothing is missing. For example, this kit came with the case, a PCB, a plate, stabs, screws, and a USB-C cable. Next step, go ahead and do the function check. Check the PCB right now before you start putting anything else together. Make sure the RGB works, make sure each switch works. I used VIA and my tweezers to complete the circuit so I could check each switch and make sure it was functioning before I invested any more time and effort into this. After that, I went ahead and did some dampening. Because this is a tray-mounted design, the PCB sits on top of some standoffs on the bottom of the case. And because there was still room to add some foam, I went to Target and got some zip and fit, which I highly recommend because it's cheap and it's highly customizable, and you get a nice large sheet for about 10 bucks. And while you're tearing it to size and tearing off little pieces for the standoffs, go ahead and make sure to tear off a piece for the USB-C socket as well. Now, depending on how you feel about it, the next step is going to be the longest and maybe the most boring for you. Now, lubing and filming is totally optional. You don't have to do it, but it will make your keyboard sound a lot better. I was already familiar with lubing switches from my last keyboard project, the Keydis NJ68, which I'll link to right here. Filming a switch, however, was new to me. Films are meant to reduce housing wobble in a switch due to any number of factors, including just the way that different manufacturers make things, tolerances, variances in batch, variances in the switch themselves. Personally, I would check each switch again after you film it just to make sure that the film didn't get bent in any way or caught up in the switch mechanism. And if you do, it'll be very obvious because you can hear it and feel it. It'll be kind of clicky when you activate the switch. Coast to coast, I rock it most times, no sweat. Be the you, get what we do and never forget. Now's the time, fall out of line and take your first step. Feet, 5, 4, 4, I smell hip hop and I want some. And I spy with my little eye. My previous keyboard had plate-mounted stabs, so I wasn't completely familiar with screw-in stabs, and I decided to forego the ones that came in the kit and got Duroc V2 stabilizers instead. After taking them out of the case, I made sure that all the pins were straight, made sure everything was nice and lubed, and then it took me a little while to figure out exactly where they went on the PCB because that was new to me. One side is going to clip in, and then the other side you're going to screw in with washer and the screw that's provided. Now, on this particular PCB, not all of the stabilizers went in the same direction, so it took me a little while to figure that out. And after all your stabilizers are in place, go ahead and add a switch and put keycaps on. Your space bar, your shifts, your backspace are probably going to be the ones that need the stabilizers. And then just go ahead and check and make sure that they are not rattling and they sound the way that you want them before you do anything else. With that out of the way, I decided to attach the PCB to the plate. Because this is my first build and I wasn't entirely familiar with it, it took me quite a long time to figure out this Tofu65 kit. The plate actually just sort of floats above the PCB, held only by the stabilizers and the switches themselves. So because the plate floats above the PCB with no standoffs or no actual physical attachments to it, it was a little tricky for me because they're just unwieldy kind of pieces. So what I did is I took 4 switches, 1 in each corner, and went ahead and put them into the plate and then attached them to the PCB. That way it kept everything nice and aligned while I put the other switches in. And at this point, I found out why you should really get more switches than you have keys on your keyboard for your build. With this 68 keys, I got 70 switches, and guess how many I messed up? Exactly 2. And I consider myself lucky, so in retrospect, I would have gotten 90 or 110 or whatever the higher options were. Now, once all your switches are in, go ahead and fire up VIA, connect your PCB again, and test out each switch to make sure that you didn't bend any pins at this point. Now that you verified that all your switches work, it's time to just go ahead and screw the PCB onto the standoffs into the tray. And even though that part seems straightforward, I still managed to mess it up. Because the way that the screw holes are in the PCB, they're oval and not exactly circle. So there's a little bit of wiggle room so that you can move things left or right or up or down a little bit. And unfortunately, my entire PCB was shifted too far to the left, so my caps lock kept rubbing the inside of the tray case, and there was too large of a gap on the right side of my keys, and then everything was a little bit lopsided in the tray. So I did an old cabinet maker's trick and I got some cards. Normally people use playing cards, but I'm a nerd, so I had some magic cards laying around, and what you can do is you can use the thicknesses of the cards as shims all the way around to make sure you have a nice even gap. And the last step is pretty easy. Go ahead and add your keycaps and enjoy your beautiful new Tofu65. So how did this all turn out? Let's go ahead and do a sound test. So I hope this encourages you to go build your own keyboard now. Thank you guys for watching the video, and as always, leave a like, leave a comment, leave a sub, support me on Patreon, and until next time, geek out.